All right, now we're joined by Preeti Shridhar, who's running for port position 4. So go ahead with a 2-minute introduction.
Okay. Well, thank you very much to have me here again. I'm Preeti Shridhar, and I'm seeking your endorsement and support for and vote for the Seattle position 4. I'd like to describe myself as an independent thinker. I bring a lot of passion for this position. I'm highly qualified for it. And I also have a vision for the port. The other thing that I bring to the table is unique relationships and partnerships. I've been a public servant with King County for 25 years, the last 10 years with the city of Renton, and prior to that with the city of Seattle. And during this time, I've really focused on building relationships, partnerships with businesses, organizations, the community, and this is what I want to bring to the port so that the port works for all of us. I received several endorsements. Just yesterday I got the endorsement of King County Executive Dow Constantine. I received endorsements from Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, Congressman Adam Smith, from the Stranger, the Urbanist, the National Women's Political Caucus, the Teamsters Joint Council, several mayors from around the region, and several community leaders. I share these endorsements with you to again reinforce the fact that people who have worked with me or I've worked with have a lot of respect for what I'm able to get done. And I believe that I'm someone who's really worked down in the trenches, and I bring that passion for the port. It's not just about lip service or signatures. I really understand that we've got to keep the port strong in maritime, aviation, tourism, and be the creator of jobs for all of us in this region. Most importantly, the port has to stay accountable to all of us.
Great, thank you. So now we have our prepared questions. They're right in front of you if you want to turn them over. So 2-minute answer. I forgot to mention Sean will be giving you the 10-second countdown as time runs out. So we'll lead off. Ben, actually, you do number 1 for port.
Sure. Should the Port Commission act to improve wages and working conditions for taxi drivers? In this era of Uber, Lyft, and Sidecar, how does the port balance issues of access, equality, and fair wages for drivers with efficient access for passengers?
Absolutely. This is one of the issues that the drivers in the port have been very concerned about, and they've been expressing their concern for several months, several years, that their working conditions need to improve, the wages that they get need to improve. And part of it is also the equation that the port uses in terms of dividing up the amount that the port keeps from the salaries and wages that the taxi drivers earn. So it's got to be, keeping fair wages, making sure that all workers get what is, living family wages has to be one of the top priorities, and the port has the ability to do that without necessarily compromising the options that the community has. So this is really important to me. During the time that I have been out meeting with people, campaigning, the number of folks from the taxi driver community who have reached out to me has been quite amazing. I kind of say with half a smile that I never thought that I would be campaigning in Hindi, but and I don't really mean that as a joke. It's just that it's such a critical issue that I feel fortunate that I was able to reach out to and hear from the community. So this is a strong priority. It has to be done, and it's not difficult. It's not an impossible solution. It just means paying attention to and changing business as usual that the port often holds on to.
Thank you. Rick, Sherry, number 2.
If elected to the Port Commission, what are your top 3 priorities as a new commissioner?
The top 3 priorities for me as a port commissioner are to make sure that the port stays strong in its, as an economic engine for this region, which means strong in the aviation business, strong in maritime, and also strong as for tourism. But second to that, it has to balance the growth and the economic strength with the environment. So one of my top priorities is to make sure that as the port balances the impact on the environment, especially as it sees growth in the airport, it is able to do so and actually write history, be the first airport in the country to have biofuels for all its airplanes. And by doing that, not only are we protecting our planet and the region and carbon emissions, we're also protecting the areas and the community that lives around the airport by reducing pollution. And third, but last, but definitely not the least, I mentioned this before, but transparency in its decision making, including the community, and a strong accountability has to be a priority for the port.
Robert, number 3.
How do we foster, promote, and leverage growth at the port while also taking a leading role in protecting the environment?
I started stating this a little bit in my previous question, but really, looking at the environment and protecting the environment and growth, there is no contradiction there. There's actually a really good working together. As you take steps to promote environmental sustainability, you're actually helping economics. And you can take this in any example anywhere. I bring examples in conservation and recycling that I've worked in. Most importantly, my experience with Seattle helping to launch the Climate Protection Initiative, which started as a Seattle effort and then grew as a grassroots effort across the country when the US Conference of Mayors embraced it. So if we take the same models and we look at growth in the airport, at the same time emphasizing biofuels, you're looking at economic savings there, look at savings in terms of waste management and protection of waste and conservation, look at savings in terms of as you build your footprint to reduce impact. So it's a win-win, and it's just something that's got to be part of the DNA of the port.
Elizabeth, number 4.
What infrastructure investments are needed to properly support the needs of the port?
Back to our key lines of business. After we've talked about the airport, the capital investment, the master planning of the airport is something that has to move on. But again, we've got to look at that as we balance it. Just in terms of the footprint of the airport, it's an investment that has to happen this way rather than this way. I hope that comes in the video. But really looking at how can we expand the sizes of the gates so that we're able to encourage, bring in the business we need to. Recently, we've had some traction with the Landers Street Bridge, and that is extremely important because freight mobility is one of the most important areas of investment and growth that we need for us to be globally successful and competitive. And overall, looking at the transportation packages, the transportation issues of our entire region is going to help us. And so investing in making or helping with transit investments and investing in ways to make us have less challenges with our transportation will help with the port.
Great. So now we'll open up to follow-up questions. These are 1-minute answers. I have one, then Sarah, Ben, and Liz. This is an open seat, and we're now down to 2 candidates, you
Yes.
and Peter Steinberg, and we're going to interview him next. And I'll ask him the same question. Now that's the 2 of you. How would you distinguish yourself from him, and why should we choose you over him specifically?
I bring fresh ideas, perspective, change, and really hands-on experience in everything that is critical for the port and that I know we need. I also have trust from the community. And that's what you need. You need to be able to build relationships, partnerships, and a community that, you know, that can reach out to you. One of the things that I've said and I feel passionate about is I will personally get back to you, bring any question to me, and, you know, within a day's turnaround, I will get back to you. I'm someone who's accessible, and there's nothing that's too little or too big that I will not try to find a solution for.
Great, thank you. So Sarah and then Ben.
Can you speak to your work on environmental policy, specifically the Climate Protection Initiative, and also specific strategies you would have if elected to curb carbon emissions at the port?
The biggest change that can happen is by the change of the fueling at the airport. So, and we're in a very fortunate position here at SeaTac, where we've got, for instance, we've got Alaska Airlines willing, ready. We've got some investments that are already there. So it's taking that next step to make it happen. And the reduction in terms of, you know, the carbon emissions will be significant with that. We've also got investment with Terminal 5, where, you know, once again, we're going to start making a difference with our, you know, overall environmental impact. And then you look at everything from, you know, the trucks that are, that the drayage workers are using, to everyday recycling, conservation, efforts at the airport and at the seaport.
Ben and then Luce.
Thank you.
Thanks. My question is actually related. How will you encourage Seattle aviation companies to switch to biofuels?
You know, again, you look at the long run, look at the impacts, look at the benefits that they can get. You know, there's infrastructure that can be utilized that's there in the airport right now. So it's a matter of a combination of giving them, you know, incentives that will help them move faster, and then showing the long-term return on their investments. It always comes down to ROI, and once you start seeing with long-term that they'll actually start, you know, saving, and we're fortunate that there's the environmental. The companies here, we're fortunate that they do care about the community. So, you know, a combination of factors from investment factors and motivation will help us get there.
Great, Liz and Ben.
Hi, so I'm kind of a two-parter, but I promise they're related.
Okay.
One is that the city and the county have been participating together now with law enforcement assisted diversion, and the one police force that's not yet involved would be the port police. There's certainly plenty of trafficking of drugs that go on, you know what the port lands are like, and so I would like to ask you, because it is within your purview, would you consider as a commissioner bringing forth for the port police to become properly trained and then continue on participating and lead the way that the county and the city do?
Answer is easy, absolutely. And I will bring to that all the relationships that I have. You know, certainly the relationships I have with the police department and the police departments, sheriff's office, and you know, work towards making that a priority.
And then the second part of the two-parter has to do with sex trafficking, and I'm sure that very recently you've seen yet another article, and we are the second most porous port in the nation, and it would be within the Port Commission's purview, I believe, to establish an actual a commission to study sex trafficking as it's existing right now, specifically in the Seattle port system, and then to make recommendations for further steps. Is that something?
15 seconds left on this question.
Absolutely, 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 yes. Yes, I think that's a big priority. And I have worked with Representative Horvath on a lot of different programs which are related to this. So I think, you know, it's an easy shoe-in to say, this is a priority, let's make it happen.
Great, Beth and Clayton.
So our port, of course, is an incredibly wealthy port, and we're very lucky to be, in that position. Do you think that based on the growth in our region right now, and the influx of traffic and so on, that it's time for the Port Commission to be a full-time paid position? Is that something that you would advocate for?
This is a question that has actually come up several times during my campaign. And what I think is most important is that the priorities and the work plan of the Port Commissioners should not be compromised. And so that should be the number one priority. Now, I would, kind of hold on 100% response on that to when and if I become the Port Commissioner, to look at that to see, by being part-time, is my role being compromised? Am I, rubber stamping stuff? Am I not getting enough information? Because I'm accountable to the community, and so that has to be first. I will say on the other side, when folks have known that I have no vested interest, that I'm doing this just from passion, there is a greater sense of, they see that I'm in this for the right reason. Doesn't mean that if Port Commissioners become full-time that they're not going to do it for the right reason, but
Clayton and then Jason.
I wonder if you have a sense of how the use of biofuels fits within national agricultural policy. Biofuels have become increasingly controversial. They're very intensive on their impact on land use in the Midwest. And so how viable is it really to talk about going to biofuels for aviation?
Well, we've seen that there are other airports in the world that have taken that on and have been successful. Oslo is one of the airports in the world that has been able to, offer biofuels. So when we embark on something which is a complete changeover from what we're doing right now, it's got to be with the right studies to make sure that the impacts are mitigated. Clearly, there's an impact of carbon. Clearly, there are greenhouse gas emissions. Clearly, we're seeing the impact of climate change. So that's a given. And then you look at, okay, if we move to biofuels, there are agricultural impacts. How can we make sure we still make the, progress, but mitigate any, challenges that it might bring up?
All right, Jason.
There's some talk about the privatization of traffic controllers. What can the port do to kind of fight against that?
Can I get that again, sorry?
Our traffic control.
Yes.
We're trying to privatize those throughout the nation, and I was wondering what role can the port play to maybe push against that?
Well, the biggest challenge of privatizing some of that is that people would then lose their standards in terms of the wages and benefits, and also the reliability and productivity. Because then then the steps go multiple, distances in terms of that. So I think the port will, if I was to look into that, I would stand strongly against privatization and look at ways to make sure that those are kept, within the unions and within the fair acts that we've established over here.
All right, thank you for that answer.
And we're about out of time. If you want to take 30 seconds for a closing statement.
Thank you again for having me. I think, as a port commissioner, I will be representing everybody in the community. There are many decisions that need a lot of, careful thinking, that need a lot of involvement from the community. One of the challenges that I've seen with the port is it's little known, and its impact is huge. So that's something that I want to make a change in, so that the community has input and the port is accountable back.
Great, thank you very much.